All
right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call this meeting to order at 6:30. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I guess this way. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on our agenda tonight is mass requirement protocol for school board meetings. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to require face coverings at all school board meetings. Terry's the first.
Second.
Devin's the second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of requiring mass face coverings at...
Vote nay.
Oops, sorry.
We the people vote nay on that.
Okay, all those in favor of requiring face coverings at school board meetings?
I got one comment, Chris.
Just a second, Ty, I saw Toby was hand up too. Or was it, you're getting ready to vote, Toby?
Chris, it's Toby. I was getting ready to vote. Sorry.
Okay.
So I'll just wait. I'll keep that off.
Ty?
Should you set for a time to readdress this, or there's a term for it? Gaslight? No. You know what I'm saying?
For a set period of time.
I'm not sure what you're getting at, Ty.
So
is it face coverings until further notice, or?
Oh, I got what you're saying, okay.
I'd be willing to amend it.
All right, I would say let's amend the motion to say, require face coverings as long as the school requires face coverings to be in the building. You want to amend that?
That sounds great.
Devin? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to require face coverings as long as the school buildings require face coverings. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Online, raise your hand.
Nay.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. We do require face coverings at our public meetings. If you need some, we can provide them.
I can't hear you.
Unwilling to cover? At your position, I'm assuming?
I would
Okay.
just like to know where my vote is, that's all. As a community member, as a parent, as a taxpayer.
I guess at this time, I'll leave it to the rest of the board whether they want to continue or if they want to postpone this meeting. It's a pretty small crowd this time. I would leave it up to the rest.
Mr. Chairman, I know that usually at this time of year, opening a school is a very critical business that usually has to occur. Sometimes on the tight timelines with bids, that type of thing. Are there items on the agenda review that indicate they are critical to the functioning of the school over the next week or two?
I would say check warrants and the snow plowing bid
The policy school.
and the policies. So yes.
I'd ask you, Mr. Chairman, and our superintendent to determine if these, not acting on these tonight is going to have a negative impact on the school, and if, once I hear your answer, then I may make the motion.
Can I ask a question? And that is it possible to do just those items and then close? Because we're setting a precedent. A lot of people stayed home because they didn't want to wear a mask. And if we keep having them, it just doesn't, there's equity or something, I don't know.
I mean, another option is we can continue with this meeting and we can change the format at our next meeting. I mean, we can adjust the format. There is room to do that. So it's everyone's comfort level at this point. We can adjust the agenda and cover those items, or we can just do the agenda as it's written. Or we can cancel, postpone.
I would like to just do those items.
I would move, and it would be voted up or down, that we move forward with critical items for the operation of the school, whether they be financial or personnel or policy. But in the opinion of the chair and the superintendent, if we do not act on these or do not report on these, it's going to impact the students, the operation of school. Then my motion is that we continue until those items are done.
I believe we would have, if we continue, we have to allow for public comment. Okay. So Don's motion on the floor is to just concentrate on snowplow bids on under new business, check warrants under old business, and policy first reads under old business. And obviously we'll have to keep public comments.
And under public comments, I would ask that you establish a structure, time limit for public comments. I believe at an earlier meeting, the acting chair said 2 minutes. 2 minutes I think is reasonable. But I think we should establish that before we open public comments.
Okay. Is there a second?
No.
Second.
Devin's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of shortening our meeting to just public comments, snowplow bids?
Chris, I do have a comment, sorry.
Just a sec, let me just finish. Check warrants and policy reads. Go ahead, Toby.
So I just, along with what Don and Devin just, or what we were talking about is managing the public comment, but also I'm curious if, and maybe Don knows the answer, but one of those ground rules I would like to consider, I believe public comment is only open to MVSD residents. I'm not sure on that. So maybe Don knows. I know we've had covered that in the past. So I think some way it would be good to be able to manage or know if a person speaking is an MVSD resident or not.
That I'm not aware of.
I wouldn't go there. If public is,
Okay.
public is public, I do think it's important that identify themselves and have a time limit.
Okay.
Are we ready to vote?
Is the reason we're gonna modify the agenda and make it shorter is so we're less time in this environment?
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I have a feeling it's not going to be less time. It's going to be long. And, but go ahead and vote.
We can vote the motion down. It's the will of the board.
That's what I'm saying. Go ahead and vote.
Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of shortening the meeting to snowplow bids, public comments, check warrants and policy reads, signify by saying aye.
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 Uh,
I'm an aye. I'm an aye.
3, 4. Opposed?
No.
Nope.
Tie. 4. 4.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. Okay, so at this point, we move on with the agenda. Okay, next up is correspondence, visitors, and public comments. Does everybody want to comment, or is there? We do have a sign-up sheet on the table right by the microphone. Anybody wants to comment, and then also online, if you want to comment, just there's a raise hand option. We can see how many people online would like to comment.
I'm going to go virtually.
Tie so far.
Here we go.
2. Right now, I have 2 online. See how many here would like to speak?
Terry just left.
She's gonna join online.
We have to pop them off.
It would be good just to see people who raise their hands.
Yes.
in a list of-
Yep. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. So Ty's running and Stephanie. That's it.
So as of right now, I have 2 people online and 6 people in the audience. So I think we'll set a time limit on public comments for 15 minutes. So it breaks down to a little over 2 minutes per person. So we'll start with the people online, and then we'll do everyone that's here. So first up online is Ty Schorner.
If I could go after, I think some of my questions are gonna get answered by others.
Okay, moving on to Stephanie Plum.
Good evening, and thank you for taking my comment. I'm going to read a letter that I wrote, and I appreciate you all for listening. Enough is enough. I'm angry, and so are many, many more parents. We parents have had enough of the focused mandates, forced knee-jerk reactions, and government overreach in the decision-making regarding the well-being of our children. We will not co-parent with the government or the school boards. We have watched our children succumb to the harm at the hands of the government, special interest groups, and inept leaders, and we will not tolerate the continuation of it. We believe in choice and parental rights. We believe all children should have the right to an education free from mandates and that have not been proven necessary or beneficial. Universal and one-size-fits-all approaches have failed our children. Children are not pawns. Our tax dollars are not to be used to cater to the demands of the special interest groups, unions, or any other organization. As we enter the school year, parents must have a choice. Education will not be conditioned on wearing a mask, scheduled COVID testing, and vaccination statuses. What kind of divide are you trying to force us into? Our children will not be mandated to miss school for 14 days due to close contact quarantine. Parents will be the decision makers for the health and well-being of our children, and we will not be silent any longer. We will stand up for our children and their rights. To the school board, school administration, local government leaders, and the businesses who have respected parental choice, we applaud you. We anticipate and appreciate your continued support of our children and the rights as parents to do what is best for them as individuals. We do not wish to take away from the learning environment of any child. To the officials who do not support parents and our rights to choose, please take note. Our voices, our votes, and our dollars will be redirected to the schools, candidates, and businesses that support parents and students. Calls for mandates, lockdowns, and universal masking in schools are not rooted in science and have caused significant harm to the most vulnerable in our state. We parents made this known to you over a year ago, but your message continues to be one of authority, cruelty, and disregard for the social and emotional well-being of our Vermont students. Enough of the fear, political agendas, and bad science. We didn't lay with you fools to make our children, so let us decide what is best for them. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a timekeeper?
I was gonna do it.
Okay, good. No, that's fine. I think that it's fine. I just want to be fair to people. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, now we're gonna move on to people who are here. First up is Steve Martel from Swanton.
First off, I don't know who gave you the authority to make a rule that's going to supersede state law, violating Vermont's open meeting law. You're in a bad position because the state attorney general isn't coming out one way or the other. We should know, where does the state stand on this by the law, either through the courts or the attorney general? You shouldn't be in that position and we shouldn't be in this position. That should be answered, whether we got to get rid of these to come to a public meeting or not. That's just to begin. Basically, you're promoting these vaccines that have not gone through the normal lengthy approval process. Vaccines that have been known to cause blood clotting and enlarged hearts and even death. The full effects of these vaccines will not be known for years. So for the government to tell you they are safe, they are lying to you. Why are you not promoting known valid COVID treatments such as Regeneron and ivermectin? We know the numbers aren't there. 99.96% of people aren't going to be affected by this, and our kids even less. They're going to get over it. You're chasing the wind and try to go out after our kids to push these vaccines on them when they're perfectly healthy and they're going to get over it anyhow. This is more about government control over our lives and the erosion of our freedoms bit by bit, till we finally wake up one day to a totally communist form of government. Perhaps one day there will be accountability from those who claim such extraordinary power over other people's children using false science, shaming, and avoidance of clear constitutional law. I strive for that day, and I stand with all parents who oppose your mask mandate, contact tracing, and vaccine push. Benjamin Franklin left us with a valuable quote that is true today and from the day he said it. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And that is exactly what you are doing here, giving up our liberty for a little fake safety. Don't be part of the woke crowd and instead wake up. 2 Corinthians 3:17 says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. So I ask this board one final question. Is there freedom in the policies that you have enacted? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, next up is Kristen Valenti from Franklin.
Good evening. Since the beginning of this entire pandemic's vaccination availability, there's been incentives like free ice cream for all. Now they're resorting to bribery, and people are spreading this information like it's a good thing. And I quote, "It appears we have an opportunity for grant money. It is up to us." Why? Why would you promote this? This is a total conflict of interest for a board member to be promoting medical procedures as a way to obtain money for their district. Like some of the responses, I would like to know, are we getting a tax refund? Are you guys going to give the extra money to the underpaid and overworked teachers? This has been and will always be about the almighty dollar. I get a form in the mail to verify if my children are vaccinated, and then I see families of MVU students, don't forget to send in your proof because we're going to get back to normal, blah, blah, blah. So what's the new normal? Only those that are vaccinated can unmask. That's not okay. That's discrimination, segregation, and bullying. I mean, let's look at the very recent past. Everyone is masked, and we're still having cases. Clearly, masks are ineffective, not to mention they're unsafe, unhealthy, and are considered child abuse. Our children are suffocating because y'all chose to mandate masks in school. You're not allowed to restrict children, and masking restricts breathing, learning, social ability, and expression. So why continue this nonsense? The school board member job description states the role of the board is to ensure the district is responsive to the values, beliefs, and priorities of the community. that these must be carried out for the benefit of and in the interest of individuals and groups in the school district. In section 2, labeled Managed District Policies, point 3 states review revised policy. And in section 5, labeled Serve as leaders and representatives of the community and advocates for the students in school district, points 1 and 5 states seek community input, ensure engagement that is representative of the community itself, and respond to citizens' inquiries. Neither of these sections were taken into consideration, especially when it was made well known that Julie would not even take our concerns into consideration after y'all voted without the knowledge of the people who pay your salaries. I'd like to inform you that children 0 to 19 represent 23% of COVID cases, and of those, 22% are 18 and 19-year-olds. 2 out of 3 COVID deaths have neurological conditions and/or intellectual disabilities. Their deaths are due to systemic deficiencies, and more likely than that, they reside in long-term or congregated care facilities. Vermont's still only at the rate of 1% of deaths due to this, and 70.4% of those people are age 50 and older. If you did your research like us, you would know all of this. Maybe you do and you just don't care because this isn't about the children. It is and has always been all about the money.
Thank you, Kristen. Next up is Chelsea Lumber from Franklin.
I want to address the board regarding a couple of items. I'll keep it quick. One is the quarantine requirement of children who may have been exposed in the classroom. 2 is a lack of education being provided to those children. And 3, I would like to ask the board about their consideration of natural immunity. So the number of parents who are finding malice with the school board's handling of quarantining children is growing. When you mandate masks are worn by our children to prevent the spread of COVID, yet you continue to send them home to quarantine for weeks or 2 weeks, you are in fact proving what we have said all along, and that is that masks do not work. They are not preventing the spread. Further, those children are being left behind and are not being provided new curriculum or learning opportunities when they are forced to quarantine at home simply because they may have been exposed. Those same healthy children are now once again losing their right to an education. It has become clear through the governor's grant money offering that there's a lot of excitement around the money being offered to schools who have the best jab rate. If this is being done truly in the best interest of our children, please let us know how you will be calculating and using natural immunity as you move forward. We know that natural immunity to this virus is as good, if not better, than the waning vaccinated immunity that you're counting on. We understand that you continually say you are simply acting as the agency of education has told you to, but today I ask, are you free-thinking adults? You must by now see that the efforts you've put in place are failing, and as free-thinking adults who have the children's best interest at mind, it would seem to me you would start rethinking and reformulating and going back to the powers that be to make a new plan. Maybe you might actually start listening to the community. Maybe you might actually start listening to the parents. When will this stop? Our children have suffered enough. We are done. Our children are done. Thank you.
Next up is Tammy Underwood from Swan.
I first want to start off by saying, this is my son Caleb. He was a junior at MVU until you decided to run us out of the school because I would not put a mask on his face. So I just want to congratulate you on losing an honor student because he is now being homeschooled. I hope you're all happy because y'all look ridiculous with those masks on because they don't work. The cloth ones don't work, and especially the blue ones don't work. And those are the ones I have the most problem with. And everything that I've got here, since you've limited our time the way you have, I'm not gonna have time to go through it all. But it's all on graphene oxide. And if you really wanna know what's in those masks, if you really care about your health, if you really care about the kids' health, you'll do your own research. You won't just open your mouth and say, please give me some more from the people that are lying to you, because that's exactly what's happening. And I hope you will take some time to actually look into this. Graphene oxide is not only in the masks, it's in the vaccines, every single one of them, and it's also in the PCR tests. So that is why people don't want to have a stick stuck up their nose every 2 seconds just to prove that they have or have not got it. When the developer of the PCR test himself, I watched a video, he explained that it was not made for that and it does not work for this. Yeah, you can dial the cycles out to 30, 40, 45 if you want to, so you can hit a dead RNA virus and say, oh, yeah, you got COVID, where's my money? You're positive. It's ridiculous. And shortly after he testified to that, gee, he's now dead. Imagine that. And I'm sure that wasn't a coincidence either. So all of this stuff that I have here, I am more than welcome, you're more than welcome to a copy of it, an online copy of it. I'm sure none of you are gonna wanna look at it anyway, but if you wanna use your own heads, you will. And the other thing that's ridiculous about these masks is how it depletes the oxygen level very quickly. And you expect these kids to sit here for 5 days a week, 7 hours a day, and try to learn? Oh, that's right, except for lunch. They can sit shoulder to shoulder, take their mask off, because the virus is smart enough not to come get them during lunch. That is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And the other thing I want to know is, I want to know who does your grant administration, because I want to see exactly how that's being administered. Because from what I've read in the Federal Register, you didn't meet hardly any of these points to get your blood money. And that included input from teachers, doctors, parents, community members. You didn't do any of that. You guys made your decision and voted on it at a meeting before you even blinked an eye. We weren't considered in any of that. So I have written and administered grants for a good share of my life. So I know where the waste is, and I certainly know where the fraud is, because I used to hold people's feet to the fire. They're your best friend when you write that grant and you get them their money. But boy, the minute you administer that grant and you tell them that they got to play by the rules, all of a sudden they hate you. And if they put half the effort into doing what they're supposed to with the money as they put into trying to figure out how to get around it and cheat and get more, what a wonderful place this would be. So I want to know who your administrator is for your grants. And I have a right to know, because that grant money was paid with federal tax dollars. It came out of my pocket, it came out of your pocket, and it came out of their pockets. And we have a right to know if you're adhering to what they said you were supposed to do with the money.
Thank you.
And the people that are online, next time show up in person, please. Because that's how we're gonna get some results.
I've given you way over the time.
Excuse me for taking my taxpayer minutes.
Next up is Jim
Sexton.
Huh?
Sexton.
Sexton from Essex.
First thing I'd like to do is thank the members that are actually listening, that are looking straight ahead or looking down and not paying attention. You're not dumb people. Most of the stuff that's been said is true. I have been fighting all over the state for 14 months to try to get people to listen. So if you don't have time for me to listen, make that choice. But if you do, look at me and listen to me. The mask you're all wearing, maybe not everybody, the mask you're wearing can't stop the transference of the COVID virus from you or to you. These are the boxes you're buying that have the mask on them. It is printed on the packaging. Cannot stop. These masks are not for personal protective use and are not intended as replacement or substitutes for personal protective equipment. These products are not intended for medical use or to prevent any disease or illness. Okay? Check the packages when you buy them. They don't work, and you all know they don't work. So what you're doing, maybe not all of you, but you're here and you're representing the school. You're cashing in. You're cashing in and you're putting the money ahead of the students. You all got kids? You want somebody to come in and say your kid can do this or that or the other thing without you having any input? None of you do. I have a document that was written by a teacher. She resigned because she was not going to mask or COVID vaccine anybody. Here's the effects on the children. Everything's documented. 2 pages, front and back. You're all welcome to have one of these. I printed them up. She also wrote a 29-page legal document for herself to give to the state, not a record, on the effects. These masks are hurting people psychologically and physically. It's documented. We can prove the masks are ineffective, and we can prove the masks are damaging children physically and psychologically. We can prove it. You all can't prove the masks are helping one person. Nobody here can say the masks are helping one person. Number two. Number three. Why are you doing this? Why are any one of you doing this to the kids? Knowing that you are causing physical and psychological damage. Statistically, there is a 0% chance of anybody under 12 dying from COVID. They beat it. If you took a breath in the last 18 months, you've been exposed. If you haven't gotten sick, it's because your healthy body has defeated it. People that have been exposed to it, personal people in my life that have been diagnosed with COVID, have better immunity than the vaccine will ever give anybody. That's documented. So we have proof that what you guys are doing is damaging kids, hurting the kids. Lady said, what about lunchtime? Any of you with an iota of common sense knows that whatever is going to happen in this school is going to happen in the lunchroom. There's no half-hour break for COVID. It's not waiting around a corner to come in. It's not. You go to a restaurant and you walk in with a mask on and you're safe, and you sit down at the table and you eat and you're not safe. Well, wait a second. You're safe as long as you're eating. Everybody on the planet has been exposed. If you haven't gotten sick, it's because your body has defeated it. The people that have gotten sick, by far majority, like 80%, have multiple comorbidities. They are prime examples of what happens when you're already sick and you get something else in there. I was a dialysis technician for 5 years. What I dealt with was what they call end-stage renal disease. It's because the people that came to see me and needed our help had multiple comorbidities. They were on the edge. And without the dialysis, they would die. Okay? So what you're doing is you're taking people that are already this close and you're flooding their lungs. The people that were getting COVID, they got respiratory disease. COVID is real. But the people it affects are not anybody in the school, not any one of you, and not any student. So you're all smart people? Go home and think about what you're doing to the children and why. And more than anything else, when you put that mask on the next time, say, what the hell am I doing this for? They don't work, there's proof. And if any of you would like one of these documents, I'd be glad to give it to you. It's a legal document, it's written up by a person who's doing this, okay? We have it, you're all welcome to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up is Raymond, I believe it's Tardis, Jr. Tardis, sorry, from Swan.
We're here again, and I'd like to thank the parents that took the time out of their schedules and took time away from their families to come here and stand up for our children's rights. Your exit strategy is only tied to a vaccine. Now, I've read of a study that says from the ages to 12 to 18, the heart swelling can be more of a threat than COVID to these young and healthy individuals. And it happens just in this study, it read that males were more adversely affected than women. But that I digress. This has not been tested over a long period of time like any other vaccine that we have ever required of our students. And you are pushing it. We get to pick. We don't co-parent with you. I'm divorced. I co-parent with my ex-wife, not you guys. Okay? And we're in agreement that this is not a risk we want to take, because there's no guarantee that he would get COVID in any situation. And if the vaccine turns out that it's great, he could always get it later once it's been out and tested. I have no problem with it being available for people who want it. I have a very big issue with it being tied to unmasking and going back to normal. We need a strategy to go normal. Okay, not some new normal. You and all of us have made it to this stage in life. From our 30s, 40s, 70s, okay? We've all made it here, and we've never done this before. Okay? We made it here. Let's give our kids the same opportunity that we had. Okay? And natural immunity was brought up. Okay? It is far and above. We've taken tests from people who had the 1918 flu, and they still have antibodies 100 years later. I urge you, I beg of you, to evaluate your plan to get out of this and come up with one that's going to get us there in a reasonable time. Be leaders. Okay? You have been given the opportunity. The governor left it up to you. You people can choose to let our children go back to normal. I would hope that at least one of you would have the courage to start this process forward. Okay? Because those of you who don't have the courage to lead us back to normal, we're going to have to find a way to get rid of you, because we just can't have it. I would much rather be home playing board games with my kid right now, but I'm here because there needs to be an out.
Amen.
Lastly, I would like to congratulate you. I didn't have a great deal of time to commit to the endeavor, but I did watch a lot of older meetings, and you've certainly brought some more community involvement. So congratulations on working towards that goal. I hope it continues to work for you.
And at this time, we'll swing back to Ty Shorner online.
So I got some questions, Chris, and the first one is staff shortages. I read in one of the minutes recently that MVU is almost fully staffed. I don't know where you're at now, but kids are coming home, and I don't know if it's all because of quarantining and saying that they had multiple teachers out that day, and they did 3 hours of study hall on a day that they don't normally have a study hall. I just don't know what the plan is. I know every employer is having the same issue with getting employees, but there's got to be something better than putting kids in study halls for 3 hours a day and having it be got to be some remote work that they can do in that study hall. It's not beneficial by any means. The second question I have, or comment I have, is for athletes that have gotten COVID already. Some that I've heard that have gotten it over summer break. There's a protocol, return back to sports protocol that they have to go through with the athletic trainer. I'm hearing some of the kids that had COVID in the summer still aren't allowed to play sports because they haven't gotten that protocol done. And then the next sentence is, oh, the athletic trainer is only contracted for 20 hours a week, and he or she can't get the protocols done. So I think tonight there needs to be a decision. I know a lot of the student athletes are only in school, only keeping them doing good in school for that chance to play the sports. And it's going to definitely affect them. So whether it's the board needs to contract 40 hours, 80 hours, there's got to be something done. And then the third thing is the Friday before Labor Day, I was contacted by the school nurse or somebody in the nurse's office that my son may have been in close contact. That was around noon. I went and picked him up at school. And by the time I checked my voicemail, it was later in the afternoon at 4:30. They did more tracing and didn't think he was a threat, but called back for more information. So on a holiday weekend, we had to sit at home and wait because there was no on-call or no return of checking messages. I don't know if that's something that is normally in place, but it just wasn't in place for the holiday weekend. But it's craziness in the time we're living in, that as much contact tracing as is going on just this last week in the school, that there's not a after hours somebody checking those voicemails at least once a day and calling families back. That's all I had. I don't know if you want to answer any of those questions, but.
Thank you, Ty. We'll have to, we'll look into that stuff and I'll get back to you.
I didn't sign up, but it's really quick. I just want to also.
Can you just state who you are for the?
I am Jim's wife, Shirley.
And can you, just for the people at home can hear you better if you're on the microphone?
Sure. I just want to point out something too about how hypocritical so much of this is, and if you can't see it, you gotta be blind. Last week, I mean, when you were gonna have the meeting last time and you canceled the meeting, we came in, the janitor wasn't wearing a mask, and then it was being required of us. You know, this stuff is hypocritical. I was told, and I don't want to point fingers or anything, but the children aren't allowed to pull up the pull-up mask, the one that our chairperson is wearing. But yet I'm sitting here being told to wear a mask, and you're sitting there wearing the exact thing that the children aren't allowed to be wearing. So everything is so hypocritical. It's just disgusting, and you're just killing our children. You know, you're hurting our children. Can you not see that? Over $1 bill. That's all I have to say. It's really disgusting.
They can see it, they don't care.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments portion of our agenda. So we'll move on. Next up on our agenda is agenda review. I don't have any adjustments. We've decided to leave it alone. Okay, next up, we'll move on to consent agenda, and under that is approval of meeting minutes from August 19th. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Steve's the first.
Second.
Devin's the second. Any discussion? Nothing online. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of approving August 19th meeting minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And online, raise your hand. Motion carries 8-0. Okay, next up.
Chris, it's Toby, I don't mean to interrupt, but who's not here for us? Because the votes are 8-0, so.
Joanne could not make it tonight.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So we'll move on to administrative reports, and first up is administrative reports. So I think we can do our normal, most of the stuff's on the drives, but we'll start with MVU and work our way down to the little schools.
MVU submitted the administrative report back on September 7th. I think there was a copy of it in the drive. We, during in-service, had some faculty professional development. I participated in the keynote by John Carnapple, where staff discussed equity and inclusion. There was one on Thursday involving Dr. Joel Van Lent on student engagement and what staff can expect when students return. We also did some data teams best practice and some SEL work during the in-service. During the reopening of school, we continue to use the frontage road, which continues to cut down on traffic at the front of the building, which is making it easier. Students and staff are beginning to reacclimate to the sheer number of people back in the buildings and getting used to that. We continue, although it's no longer an AOE and Department of Health recommendation, we're encouraging teachers and students to wipe down the tables following each use. The newsletter was submitted for September. We're working on the one for October now. In regards to an athletics update, on August 23rd, John Lumsden had a sports information night from 6 to 7 on the varsity soccer field. He spoke about general information such as schedules and contacting coaches and starting the fall season. He did give the same kind of presentation on Monday, August 30th for the middle school athletes and parents. There was also a 3-team field hockey jamboree at Jay Peak on Saturday the 21st. And there was also a 12-team soccer jamboree at Jay Peak on the 28th as well, where each varsity team had 4 30-minute scrimmages. And he did give us some numbers that currently there are 273 student athletes participating on 16 middle and high school teams. In comparison to 2 years ago, which is probably the best, most accurate one we have, is we're slightly down from 313 that participated during that time. So we're down a little bit from where we typically were. This is our homecoming week. We've had some activities throughout the week. We haven't been able to have like the night games in the past. That was kind of cut down by the VPA because you got to have more, there was more stringent expectations around that. You've got to have fixed lights, not portable lights any longer. So we were unable to do the night events like we've had in the past. But starting tomorrow afternoon into evening, there will be a parade coming up from Canada Street up to Swanton Municipal Building, starting at 6 o'clock. And following that, there's a outdoor dance here for the high school, starting or ending right around, starting at 7 and ending about 8:45. Okay.
Thank you. Don.
Dan, whose decision was it that portable lights no longer acceptable?
Vermont Principals Association. Because it was, what they found is that the lights, a lot of the portable lights were not high enough. Like the ball would go up, soccer ball would go up above the lights and they would lose track of it. And also the exhaust from some of the gas powered generators.
Thank you.
Yep.
I do have a question online. Robert Corey.
I'm good. My question was answered already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dan. We'll move on to Swan.
Great. So our report is also in the materials that you received, but I'll just highlight a couple of different things. We've started with a lot of professional development this year. All of our teachers are participating in a course called Mindplay, which focuses on reading instruction. That's a graduate level course that they'll be working on all year long, and our instructional coaches are supporting teachers on that. That's a really exciting piece of work for us that will help us differentiate our instruction to meet the needs of all of our learners. We're also beginning a year-long theme where we'll be talking about teacher language and the importance of teacher language and the difference that the adults in our building can make with our students based on the words that they say. And we're going to be using the book, The Power of Our Words. I have a little screenshot in the report that you got. So teacher language is something that we're going to be working on a lot this year, and I'll report back to you as that work goes on. I wanted to just mention that I had said in my report we had a resignation of our technology coordinator, and I'm pleased to report that we've made a hire. We're really excited about that. Craig Davis is the person that we've hired, has a tremendous amount of technology experience. He's going to be onboarding with us in the beginning of October, so we were really pleased that we were able to find a high quality candidate so quickly and get that moving as well. And another focus of ours is community engagement. So we've had a lot of good response to the newsletter. We share our newsletter, our Wednesday weekly newsletter, very widely. If you're a member of the board, I send that to you so you have an opportunity to take a look at that as well. That is part of our ongoing emphasis on community engagement, and really trying to support the board's goal around that as well. And the last thing that I wanted to just mention was we're really excited about our after-school program this year. We have 94 students that have signed up for the first session, and that's a great number for us. So we're excited about that program. We have John Bowser, who's the new director. He began this summer as the coordinator of the summer program and will be continuing into the school year. So he's organizing a great program for us to happen after school, and we're really excited about that as well. I put the enrollment numbers, just in case y'all were curious about that. I put a chart in the back of your report that will let you know our total enrollment and enrollment by grade level. That's something I like to do at the beginning of the year for the board, just so you can have a sense of where we are. We're up by about 17 or 18 students right now from where we were last year. So our population is definitely growing. And I would be happy to answer any questions about anything else that I wrote about.
Did he re-raise his hand or?
No, I never.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Swanton and Chris? Not seeing any, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Highgate and Yeshua.
All right, sounds good, thank you. So just some of the updates we have for Highgate. We're certainly now kind of diving in our curriculum because the first, so many weeks of school really focusing on setting expectations and kind of getting things rolling. And so we're really diving into curriculum, which is nice to see. And it's definitely nice going into classrooms and being able to see kids closer to each other, on the rug, like all those things we never really got to see last year. So that's really nice. I did recently just update our open house. We are still hoping to have it this Tuesday, the 21st. We are staggering it, so there's certain grades from 6 to 6:30, another grade 6:30 to 7. But we're going to have adult or parents go through the exterior doors versus going through the main doors. That we can kind of keep, just classrooms in there. But we're, as I said, hoping to keep it on. I'm going to keep checking things out up until Monday, and then let families know if we're changing anything. We are keeping open house on for right now. I don't know if I ever mentioned this at one point, but Ernie Hemingway, who worked at Highgate for a very long time and still really kind of considered the heart of the school, is actually back as a tutor. She was back half-time last year as a tutor, and she's come back again. It's been very nice to have her back in the building, and if you know Ernie, she is very excited, and she's over the top and elated every day that she's there. So it's been nice to have her. Also, last year I talked about that Highgate was awarded a $25,000 grant from an application some staff members did for the Cliff grant year of the book. And our kickoff event is actually next Tuesday as well during the school day. So an author will come in, they'll do different stories and events with K2 and 3-6, and then we'll send a bunch of books home with kids, which is wonderful. And as Chris mentioned, we also were kind of diving into lots of professional development for our teachers and staff. In particular, we're really focused on our social emotional learning competencies, and we are now kind of combining that with our restorative practices. And we have that for one faculty meeting a month. And we're also diving into our instructional framework that we've had here for a number of years, specifically on just opening school and setting routines and expectations. And we've done a lot of work of thinking about student perspective and teacher perspective, and both with SEL and with instructional framework. So we're going along here at Highgate. It's been a good start to school.
Thank you, Yeshua. Any questions for Yeshua or Highgate? Ty.
Just like to add Yeshua on his next update to just provide a little bit about buildings and grounds updates. That's all I had.
Is there any?
There's actually, Ty, there's usually in our agenda, the facility committee will have updates about that. We just didn't have it in this particular agenda. It's generally in most of our agendas, and we discuss any upcoming plans on any of the sites, campuses, I mean.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Any other questions for Highgate and Yeshua? Seeing none, we'll move on to Franklin and Joyce.
Okay, well, I'm going to stand up because I can't see people. I guess I need to grow a little taller while I'm sitting down. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about the start of school because last time we were here, we had just finished in service, or we're just about done, and I had talked about that. But I want to talk about the start of school because there are so many positive things that have happened at the start of school. We had a wonderful kindergarten orientation, and we were on the eve of that at our last meeting. And then we had the start of school the following week. And it was just so wonderful to have kids back in the building and not having to do some of the things that we did last year. You know, we didn't have the temperature taking and meeting people at cars, and parents walk their kids down to the classroom the first day. You know, a lot of parents, it's a tradition walking their kids down to the class the first day. And that was just so nice. And we were able to, you know, have different classes playing together out on the playground. We were able to go to library, and we were going to music, and just everybody was just so happy for all of those things. So it was just a really wonderful start to the school year. That first week of school, we always end with Fun First Friday, and we always get out there and have a fun afternoon that first week. And this year our theme was Franklin Olympics, and all the classes rotate to different stations, and all of the staff. My station was the Ellie Prairie or St. Pierre egg relay. Somebody said to her later she should have come and like put in an appearance, but I guess she was working on the farm that day, they said. But anyway, the kids just have a great time, and it's a great way for the teachers to start getting to know their kids a little bit differently from the classroom. And it was just a really wonderful day. And then we were really fortunate that we had our back to school night very early on September 2nd, so 2 weeks ago today. And I wasn't really sure how that was going to go in terms of attendance. We stopped counting at 175 people. People were still coming in. We did make some modifications to it. Kind of always hurts me because I always feel like we're having people over, and we didn't have food, and I always feel like we have food when we have people over. But I didn't have snacks at it this year, just as a, you know, so we were masked. But we did. We stopped counting at about 175 people. They were still coming in. And we had a shorter time in the gym than usual this year, but then families went to classrooms and heard teacher presentations, got to meet their child's teacher in person this year right off, and were able to hear about what their child was going to be doing this year and what they could do to support that learning at home. Because that is always the biggest message that we want people to get at back to school night, that we just don't want parents to be involved, that we need them to be. And that's the way all kids are going to be most successful. So that's the biggest message we want them to get that night. And we were just thrilled to have that kind of a turnout for our back to school night. And I really hope you have a chance. I did put in the link to the video that we show that night, and it's memories from, you know, the year before. And it just kind of reminded us of last year, as tough as a year as it was last year, there were so many good things that happened last year. And also a good reminder of the things that we're not having to do this year. You know, just a lot of the changes that we're not having to do this year. So I hope you get a chance just to check out that video. And Peter might have asked me about this later, but September we're always getting ready for the district spelling competition. And this BPA decided this year there would not be one due to masking and COVID. And so that was really disappointing that we would not be able to have a spelling team for the state competition this year. And facilities, I did just want to mention the boiler. The boiler work is progressing really well, and we're very excited about that. This week we have Leah Mermelstein, writing consultant, coming to spend 2 days with us. I will talk a lot more about that another time because Jay didn't think I could be short tonight, but I'm actually shorter than Dan right now in terms of my time. So I will tell you all, I will really tell you more about, and I haven't said anything about the Twins, because I was picking on Jay earlier today about the Twins. So the Twins record against the Yankees is really abysmal. But anyway, so no, it's just everything, the writing I will talk a lot more about another time, but we are thrilled about that. I was actually had a meeting with Leah Saturday morning virtually, and we've been working really closely with her to really individualize what we're doing in terms of the professional development with our teachers around writing and for our classes. So we're super excited about that, and that's going to be happening next week. So, and that's it from Franklin. I feel like that's it from Lake Wobegon.
Was the chairman the 2 minute
sorry,
rules going to be universal? Was that?
2-minute rules will be universal.
Glad you guys aren't competitive.
Hey, he was picking on me earlier today, so if I get the buses to Franklin faster, I'll do anything for him.
So, any questions for Joyce and Franklin? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. And that concludes administrative reports. And we'll move on to superintendent newsletter.
And that's been attached since earlier in September. The one thing I hope that you, and many of the topics have been touched on by the principals talking about in-service and the start of school. I did include the report that came out of our belonging thought exchange that we did at in service with the full faculty. And I think it's a nice way to look at what teachers and support staff are thinking about that would help create a better culture of belonging in the school for them. And as an administrative team, it's something that we'll dig into, and it's good information for the board as well. But we're having opportunities to talk about, well, out of this, what is a strategy that we can put into place in a school to have community building or opportunities for teacher and staff voice. So those kinds of things are represented in that report, and we're going to be using this tool quite a lot this year.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent's newsletter? Seeing none, we'll move on. So we'll move on to new business. First up under new business is actually snowplow bids. We met as a facility group about this. We really didn't receive very many bids at all. And so our recommendation to the board would be a motion to not accept any of the bids. So we can go back out to bid.
I'll make a motion, we don't accept any bids and go back up to bid.
Don's the first.
I'll second that.
Peter's the second. Any discussion?
Maybe I should have continued, maybe it's a given, but there has to be a drop dead date on that, right? That when these bids will have to be due, so we can, I think there's been some communications, but I guess my question is, should our motion include the due date of the bids so that it corresponds with our board meeting for action?
I don't have a problem with that. I had proposed a date in the new timeline that was shared in the drive of October.
You know, I don't always take time to have the drive, I have so many things.
Oh, no, that's okay. October 4th, I had proposed it. That would work out in the new timeline, then we have a meeting on the 5th.
I think that should be in the motion of Peter's agreement.
You mean to follow this timeline? That she published?
Timeline.
It looks like,
It would be, the bids would be due on October 4th.
Okay,
and then
October 4th.
our next meeting's the 5th. Right?
Sorry.
Our meeting's on the 5th,
Yes.
and bids are due on the 4th. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Somewhere I've read it, but I don't always sit down and go through the drive, I look at my emails, but I just wanted it in the motion. Hopefully somebody out there will hear it and bid.
I was just wondering, I think Laura's closer to it, if she could, explain to us the bid process and why we feel that we need to rebid this.
I think in Franklin and Highgate, there's potential that we received enough bids to be competitive, but we did launch one RFP, and that was for all of the schools, and definitely for Swanton and MVU, we only received one bid per school, and that definitely would not qualify as enough bids to be competitive, especially for something like plowing, where typically we receive 6 or 7 bids. Also, there was concern over 2 bidders potentially commingling a relationship, and so I've spoken to those vendors about that in the problems in statute with that kind of bidding.
So we want to get clearer, unobstructed bids.
Right, and more of them, and we will actively,
Right.
we already are actively soliciting more vendors.
Good, thank you.
Toby.
Yeah, I'm just, it's September. I get nervous, so I think we need to do whatever we can to make this happen. So I'm deferring to facilities here. So I hope we all have a plan to, I don't know, but snow can fly in November, so.
The new timeline, Toby, in the drive would allow us to have bids in place if it goes the way it's projected to by October 5th.
Okay, that's great.
So obviously our intention was to have the bids tonight, but it didn't work out that way, so that's why it's later than we had anticipated.
Right. Jen.
Is there any way to go, or are we allowed to go back to everybody who bid in the past couple of years to see if they're didn't see it, or if they're interested in putting a bid, so we can have.
Yes,
you know,
and that's what Laura was talking about, that there's gonna be a lot better reach out. We're hoping to reach out to more people, including our current contractors that are doing our plowing. Because for a couple of the schools, our current contractor didn't even bid, so we're not sure why, whether they didn't know about it or they're moving on, but so we're gonna do a better job of soliciting more bids this time.
I will say in round one, we did print it in the Messenger, which is our your chosen printing paper. And it was on all of the websites, and we did solicit to some vendors, but we have now since, I think, found about 6 or 7 more. So we'll make sure that they get those directly.
The weather's been too good, and in fairness to Toby, he was on the board when we used to do it in November, so we won't have a stroke.
Right. Any other discussion?
Laura, will you be requiring pre-visits again?
Mandatory walkthrough again, yes, I think
Okay.
that's important.
All right, all those in favor of not accepting any of the bids and projecting October 4th as the new due date for new bids? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or online, raise your hand. Motion carries 8-0. Okay, next up is PK snack subsidy.
This is just informational, but since we typically do not subsidize meals for students, I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of it. Because we have 2 programs, one in Highgate and one in Swanton, a pre-K programs where their day is longer and it's extended. To follow the National School Lunch Guidelines, we have to provide snack for those students. There are 15 students in Swanton and 44 in Swanton that are there for those extended periods of time and therefore require a snack. Because of the timeline when this information surfaced to our ECP director and then the business office, we had already, the timeline would have been very, very tight to apply for a new school lunch program, the snack portion of that. The state would actually have to have done a visit. There were all these hoops and regulations that we would have had to comply with. It just wasn't going to happen in time to be able to meet the first day of classes for these students. And so we made a decision to subsidize these snacks at 97 cents a piece without reimbursement like we typically get from all of our other programs for providing meals for students. This would be a 1-year only thing for these, and then next year we would have sufficient time to put those applications and have the site visits and all those requirements in place. So it's a total of about $4,000 that will hit the general fund. Or I can potentially, which my hope is that there will be some grant dollars available for food service this year due to COVID, and I would be able to utilize those, but those haven't surfaced yet. So right now, that $4,000 would be the responsibility of the general fund. Typically, I would bring that to you if there was some time constraints to make sure that we were meeting the requirements so the program could run.
Devin.
Can all of those administrative things happen during the year, or is that something you have to do before the year starts?
It could happen during the year. We talked about that, I guess we thought in our discussions with ECP and Julie and myself that the dollars were insignificant enough, not that $4,000 is significant, but that jumping through all of those loopholes at a time when people's time and energy and efforts are pulled in so many directions already might not necessarily be worthwhile, that we would shoot for next year. It would be about a 2-month process, and the AOE, quite frankly, is so far behind in the child nutrition program that I have no idea when they would even come.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to waiver request.
That is just an FYI. Toby, did you see in the drive that your waiver as a school board member, you can referee? So we have the official letter and it's in the drive. I wanted to inform the board of that.
Yes, I saw that, and if there's ever any discussion regarding compensation for referees, I will certainly leave the room, but don't be afraid to remind me. I'll be out of there. I want to be out of there, but we all need to remind each other, so I won't take any offense. And having said that, I might be leaving any day for a detail assignment, and so I declined anything. So I have a suspicion that I probably won't be refereeing or umping until the spring anyway, for sure. So that's it for me on that.
Thank you, Toby. Okay, moving on, under new business is leave of absence request.
Yes, Highgate hired a new teacher, as you know, an additional teacher. And that person was a paraeducator, and his contract as a teacher is for 1 year. This is Stephen Davio, and I suggested to him that he approach the board for a leave of absence from his paraeducator position, so that should we only need the position for 1 year, should we open the position up for a bigger interview process, that he would have his the ability to return to his para position. And it has the full support of the principal.
Okay, so at this time I entertain the motion to accept the leave of absence request.
So moved.
Peter's the first.
I'll second.
Steve's the second. Any discussion? Devin.
Just to clarify to make sure I understand that, this person was a para. We created a 1 year, potentially 1 year teaching position, and they filled that position.
Yes.
And this is essentially a backstop so that they can go back to the, okay.
Exactly.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other questions? Are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye, or online, raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Opposed? Okay. Motion carries 8-0. Side letter regarding lunch coverage.
So this is the same side letter that the school board signed with the association last year. Should we need students to eat in the classroom and teachers not be able to have that duty-free lunch period of time? Every school's a little different in their duty schedule, and it's a ever-evolving schedule, I know. But we had an opportunity that if they're directed to cover a 25-minute lunch, that they would be able to leave 25 minutes early when students are not in the building. And that's a side letter we had in place quite successfully last year, but we intentionally are making these for just 1 year at a time.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to accept the side letter regarding lunch coverage.
I'll move that, Mr. Chairman.
Don's the first. Terry's the second. Any discussion? Peter.
I don't know if this is the right time, but Julie, I know we've communicated about the lunch and concerns with COVID and masking and that, and I know you said you are overseeing that. I was just wondering, are we going to be going back to a situation like this, or where we're at with that?
Every school is working on a different plan. I think Yeshua has a plan, for example, where half the kids that had been in the cafeteria before are in the classroom and half are in the cafeteria. We were just talking with MVU today about trying to get students out of doors, seeing what kind of rotation might be possible. Again, early stages of those discussions. Every school has a different situation. And Chris, I know you and I just talked about this, and I'm not remembering what you said, because we talked about a lot of other things too.
Yes, yeah. So Julie and I talked about some options that we're exploring for Swanton, and really the underlying goal of that being reducing the number of students that are in the same space. So that might mean some of our students use a different space in the building, but we keep half of those students in the cafeteria. So our goal is always to reduce the crowd size, particularly when students are unmasked.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the side letter regarding lunch coverage, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Okay, that concludes new business. We're on to old business. Under old business, first up is check warrants.
Okay, and I have the information. This memo was dated September 7th in regards to the month of August 2021.
There's a new one that was dated the 16th. Sorry, Steve, I didn't notice the date on yours. I
Oh, okay.
updated it to this meeting.
Okay, all right. So it should be the September 16th. Accounts payable showing at $659,972.36. Payroll checks $39,985.66. Payroll other disbursements showing at $1,416,429.96. Payroll deductions $474,768.48. Total is $2,591,156.46.
So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept check warrants as read.
So moved.
Devin's the first. Jen's the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting check warrants as read, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Okay, now under old business, we're gonna move on to our policy first readings. We have 6 of them.
Holy smoke.
So what we've done, and again, these are just the first readings. I had Christine Norris, an executive assistant, go through and look at required policies that have been updated or added since we adopted policies as an MVSD board when we merged. And there have been a couple of small changes, and then there are 3 financial policies that Laura will speak to that are federal updates and to particularly when it comes to grant and procurement and those pieces. So I'll let Laura do that. The employee unlawful harassment was a change of title, and there is a section for training that was added. And of course, we've updated employees because sometimes people have moved on or they've changed positions, so we're making sure we're updating that. The English learners policy C4 is a change of title. And that's really all. And the firearms policy was a change. I don't have the change in front of me, I apologize. There was an update to the firearms policy with a citation, I believe. But we had discussed previously that we might want to add to the firearms policy and take the required policy and add to it. And those added sections are aiding other students and immediate removal from school. So I'd ask you to look closely at those and give feedback to me and to Christine. That is language that when I was at Maple Run, we added to that policy to cover circumstances where the board may have an interest in long-term discipline for a student who is egging on, encouraging, or helping a student to bring a firearm to school. And so this policy change allows the board to act in some way on that. So again, just a first reading, and we will take input from the board, make adjustments, and bring it up again at the next meeting. Laura, if you would give an overview on the three that you brought forward.
Sure, and truly, the three that I'm bringing forward, there's been an initiative by the AOE and my professional organization, Basboro Association of School Business Officials, to revamp any financial policies due to the volume of federal dollars that we're receiving right now. So these are just three that I'm bringing to you now. The travel policy, that's a required policy to meet federal grant compliance. It basically just states that, that we would reimburse reasonable expenses to school employees, and it would not be straight reimbursement, but rather we follow the federal reimbursement rate for mileage. So all that says, it also speaks to the union agreement, would obviously trump this policy or take that into account. The capitalization policy is a recommended policy, but once it's recommended, as we know, it basically becomes required. This one just states that we will capitalize fixed assets, so any assets over the individual unit price of $5,000 will be basically depreciated and tracked as a capital asset. And then the prevention of conflict and interest, that's a required policy as well, and basically states that no employee, officer, or agent of MVSD will be involved in awarding a contract if there was a conflict of interest and they were somehow related to or tied to the vendor. It also states that we will not solicit or accept any favors, gratuity, or anything of monetary value from such vendors that exceeds $5. So when I go to my professional organizations, we get lots of little keychains and things that cost 25 cents, but nothing over $5. No free cars or anything. That's that.
We'll be able to review those and then they'll be on the agenda for our next meeting.
Yep.
Moving on to other business. First up is a letter of support. Huh?
Peter has it.
Sorry.
No,
Go ahead,
it's okay.
Peter.
So just to confirm, so we got, what, 6
Yes.
policies here? None of these are new policies, they're all just revamped or added to?
The first three are all policies that we have and have been revamped. One, for example, just a title change or just the addition of training language. There's additional language in C5 firearms policy as I described. And we have a travel policy already, but this has been through a new process, as Laura described, of the committee and attorneys that have improved upon it. And we had procedures, I think, for capitalization and procurement, but not policy. And so we're moving them into policy as that's being asked of us.
We had a procurement procedure for federal grants, yeah, but it wasn't a policy.
So when we look at these, will it be highlighted or will there be memos telling us what's changed?
Yes, we initially had that and it was shared with the administration, and I thought it was shared with the board. If it wasn't, I apologize. Then what happened is Google's share settings in some of the folders changed, and then nobody could get into that. So we're gonna do that again share it as a Google Doc so that you can put comments and we can put highlights.
Okay.
So we do have it that way. That's my long way of saying yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Any other questions? Seeing none, now we can move on to other business. And first up under other business is letter of support for Swanton 4th Street property project.
Well, we have half the committee here. But Yeshua's on that committee, Terry's on that committee. Principals received email requesting letter of support for the recommendations that the Swanton Select Board Committee on the 4th Street property have made. And I said, Betsy, you know what, it's gonna be better if the board makes that letter of support rather than an individual, because as an individual, I don't write letters of support. Typically, I want the board authority coming with that, especially if we're giving a recommendation to a public body like one of our select boards. So essentially, the group, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you're on that committee, It's your name was on there.
Sorry, it's my wife, not me, but she's doing great.
So the property on 4th Street, there was a large select board meeting, as we've discussed before, where people were saying, you know, please don't sell it to a developer. It's right there on the fit and healthy walking path. It's right there connecting to the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. It's across the street from the school and the public playground. Please let's look at it as an asset that could help with the recreation department, that could help with more public programming for students, for children, for families and community members, and bringing people in to those venues of the public walking path and so forth. So the committee, Betsy was thrilled with that, and I wrote a letter and put it in the drive, basically saying that the board supports the recommendations of the committee and would love to see it put to some public use.
Terry, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, thank you, Julie. You covered it really well. And it is Joshua's wife who's on it, so she's a star. But I just wanted to add that one of the hopes is that there will be more recreation, you know, especially basketball season, how there's such, you know, our dream is that we'll have an indoor basketball court. Because I know that oftentimes there's not space in Swanton or in Highgate. You know, I don't know how Franklin does with basketball, but it seems to be in short supply gyms. And just to make it recreational for the community, which we're always talking about fit and healthy people, it just makes sense for me if you all would support it.
Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion to support the letter to 4th Street property project.
Got Terry as the first.
Oops, sorry, Terry's the first. Need my own screen, I guess. And Jen's the second. There you go. Any discussion? Peter.
Julie, you mentioned that you wanted it to come from the board. Do you want to change that? Could you put your name on it, or do you want to add the board to it?
I'll put the board, yeah, good point. I was writing it right before this meeting.
And the other question I have is certainly support Swanton and them wanting to improve recreation. Certainly support that. I guess my question is, as far as the school itself, what are if someone would explain what the benefits to the school, to our district, what's the benefits of this project?
Do you want me to take that?
Sure.
There's been a push, and I think it's wonderful collaboration throughout MVSD with the different rec departments. And I know that they've been working together. And part of this is creating this community with kids that have recreational facilities, capabilities, you know, not just tied to one school, but to our MVSD community. And I think it's not just for kids, it's also for parents, it's also for grandparents. You know, and I could see it not being just Swanton, but being something that would be shared.
Any other discussion?
Chris, I didn't know if you wanted to weigh in on that.
Only that I think we're always looking for more outdoor spaces. That's something we want kids to be outside, not only because of our current health situation, but that's a good place for kids to be. And so we have, between the rec path and the new playground and so other surrounding features around the school, we have a nice campus, and I would certainly welcome additional opportunities to get kids outside and work with this group.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of supporting the letter, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Okay, next up is formation of Teacher Negotiations Committee. think generally we have 3 people on it, but I don't think it has to be limited to that either. So anybody would like to volunteer to do that? Since nobody's jumping up and down to do it, I will throw my name in. I'm willing to do it.
This is to form a teacher negotiation committee?
Yes, the negotiations we did, I think you were on the support last time, that was a 3-year. The teachers was a 3-year, the teachers was a 2-year, so it's due again.
So we aren't doing support this year, right?
No, just professional.
Chris, do we have anyone with experience? It sounds like you've done it before. Do you have any other?
I've done support before and I've done professional before.
So I have never done it, so I probably don't have a lot of experience with that particular issue. And that said, I'm kind of skittish because I am a civil servant myself. So I'm nervous about getting into negotiations for that purpose. I've seen that be problematic to some, so it's something I would prefer not to do. But so I'll just leave it at that. And Joanne's not here.
Good point.
Terry.
I was just gonna say, last year I was on the support staff with Jen as our leader. And do you want us to go back to the ones we were on before, is my question?
No, you don't, no, because we're only doing professional this time, so it can be a whole different group.
Well, I could volunteer, depending on who else wants to do it. It was great last time, Jen was great at it, so I'd be happy to help if I can.
So right now it's Terry and myself. Anyone else?
Not to be funny, but Joanne's a good point. She is currently on there and she came on late, so maybe we should wait and see if she wants to continue.
Just because she's not included tonight doesn't mean she can't be included later. And absolutely, if she would like to do that, we can definitely include. Like I said, it's not limited to 3 people.
Okay.
No, thank you, Peter, because Jen came on at an awkward time, fit in very well, asked a lot of good questions, so I don't know, did somebody say she is or isn't interested? We don't know.
You mean Joanne?
Joanne, yeah.
Yeah, Joanne,
We
I'm
don't
talking
know.
about Joanne, sorry. Yeah. So, if she's at all interested, she'd be a good choice because of her involvement last time.
Sure. We can leave it at Terry and myself for now, and then we can reach out to Joanne.
But what about Jen? I thought Jen said she wanted to do it.
Jen, we'd love ya.
Donna, I'm gonna reserve myself for the following year to redo the para, like I did.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, so as of right now, it's Terry and myself. We're gonna reach out to Joanne, see if she would like to do it. And then if she doesn't, we'll probably look for some more volunteers next meeting. So with that, we'll move on to the last item under other business, which is the letter of intent to negotiate. We have to send a letter of intent saying that we want to enter into negotiations.
That's a boilerplate letter, right, Julie? I would move we use a traditional letter. I think there's a timeline on it.
Here it is, by October 1st. I have it ready, yep.
Okay, so Don's the first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Peter's the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of supporting the letter of intent to negotiate, signify by saying aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. That concludes other business, and we'll move on to future agenda items. We still have to touch on I think it was Act 173 presentation. We shuffled it around due to the limited time in meetings. There was a couple other suggestions. I don't think I have my notes
We had
here.
SRO and we had update and we had the after-school program update, so we'll have those coming up in the next months for you all.
Did you
wanna
mention
put them on the
after-school
schedule.
program? Because I
Yep.
thought that,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, I spoke to her about it. She has a lot of exciting things to share.
Is there anything new to add to that list? Hearing none. Next up is future meetings, discussion of possible location. Do we want to continue meeting here at MVU? Do we want to switch to or investigate a different hybrid style? We have to have a physical meeting place, and it has to be staffed by somebody, whether it's a board member or a staff member. By law, we have to do that. It's open meeting. But there is a lot of leeway within locations. We could looking at some off-site locations. I know that's been suggested.
Yeah, I think it'd be wise to look at some opportunity so that we don't have the conflict of a mask indoors in a school. If we had, I don't know what the options are, I'll let you look into that, but I think it's worthwhile.
Okay. So I'll work on some possible alternatives, and we'll plan on our next meeting is.
Like you said, the 5th.
Yes, it's October 5th. So it'll be October 5th at 6:30, and we will figure out a location quickly, within a week, and then announce it out with the agenda.
And we'll definitely have the Zoom. We want to make sure that wherever we are, that we have very good sound and opportunities for people to join remotely.
Right. Because one of the suggestions is to have meetings outdoors. The problem with that is weather, because it's unpredictable. And then the other problem is for people that are joining in online, sound quality would just be a nightmare.
Chris, before we adjourn, are we close to adjournment?
Close, yes.
We're close, okay. I want to thank you for chairing, I think, a very effective meeting tonight. I know that there's probably some people who think differently and might not have thought, but I think we accomplished a lot. We need to keep our school moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. Terry?
Thank you. I would just like to kind of have a little bit of a discussion with the board in terms of explaining why during public comment meetings, during the public comment section, we don't discuss it, we don't have a dialogue, it's not the way it's supposed to be. And I just want to be clear so that the public understands why we listen as opposed to do any speaking during that time.
Well, from my standpoint, a lot of it is we want to provide appropriate answers. There's research that has to be done and stuff like that. And officially, public comment is for agenda items. And almost everything that was in public comment tonight was not on our agenda.
Excuse me, I just, along those lines, I just am wondering at what point in time the board, without numerous prompts, does respond to the community's questions and concerns. I know that you're saying you don't do that during this time frame, but I'm just wondering when that does happen, because it's, few and far between.
That's one thing I've been thinking about, and I was thinking for our next meeting, a possibility, if the board members liked it or not, we could do a statement, make it part of our public meeting, try to touch on as many points as we can, because I wrote down a lot of the questions that were asked tonight, so if we can at least touch on some of the questions that were asked.
Thank you, we would appreciate it.
Is there anything else before I call for a motion to adjourn?
Chris, just a note that I'm pretty sure I'm going to be traveling the week of the 5th for our next meeting, so I may not be able to attend, but if I can, it will be virtual. So
that's fine. The virtual option is also for the board members. I mean, as we have some online tonight, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. We all don't have to be here to be able to vote. You just have to have at least one of us.
Chris, this is Toby. I just want to thank you for guiding us through the last 3 meetings, sort of particularly echoing what Don said. And I think a hat tip to Julie. And I think at least as a single board member, but I'm sure everybody recognizes that this is a stressful time, particularly for our administrators and all our employees. And I think they're doing a great job. And I just hope they can continue to navigate through this. You see in the news, a lot of administrators just, for whatever reason, stopping. And I think we're lucky right now. And I just wanted to acknowledge that because it's not what anyone probably signed up for, what's been going on anywhere in the whole country, actually. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. So, Peter.
Also like to commend Rob because it looks like our phone and virtual meeting, we've had glitches in the past, but it looks like we've got those straightened out, at least from our perspective. It looks like it worked very well.
Yeah. Very good. Anything else? At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:10. Devin's the first.
One second.
Steve's the second. All those in favor of adjourning at 8:10, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 8-0. We are adjourned.